Welcome back, everybody, to the Soul Star podcast with Ali and Mandy. We are intuitives, we are energy healers, and we are spiritual teachers here to help you connect back to your own intuition. And we have a special guest on today. We have Debra Doerksen. Got it right. She is a spiritual medium, and we kind of got, spirit brought us together, connected us. And so we asked her to come on. And so she so graciously did. And welcome, Debra.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yay.
We're so excited to have you. And you know what's even more exciting is that Debra is local. So she lives in Victoria too.
Nice. Which is so weird that we just haven't met each other.
I know.
Yeah. Which is, yeah.
I love
exciting.
that.
Yes.
I know. I love
Small
that.
city, but big world. So
totally.
And now we're going to see you all the time.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens.
I mean, we're going to run into each other at the grocery store.
I know.
We're so excited to have you on, Debra. And we always love to start our podcasts when we have a guest on about like your journey to your like understanding your gifts and opening up to your mediumship skills and all that sort of stuff. Like, will you share with us how that went for you? And like, did you know you were a medium as a child?
This is always, of course, the narrative. Do you know what I mean? Telling the story of like how, and that's what the book is about. So the timing of this podcast, of course, came along with, and this is the first place I'm mentioning it, by the way. So you're the first.
Thank you.
After this tonight actually is the first time I'm going live for all of my clients and followers to talk about the book. And so that's it. It's called A Turn of Attention. This band won't be there because this is the editor's copy. But it comes out October 30th on Amazon. So this is the heart of it all. And it's the story that I didn't realize is a question you asked, sort of like, was this in your childhood? It's a collection of stories from mediumship, but as I was writing those stories and as I was compiling them over an 8-year period, I realized as I was into the book partway through that I couldn't tell the story of knowing unless I told the story of not knowing first. And so, so I ended up going back into the past, doing a deep dive into the past, which I didn't expect. And I think I had actually even pushed away from the beginning because I wanted the book to be about the stories of the people, kind of like a chicken soup for the soul.
Right.
Story after, you could pick it up in the tub and just like, here's a story, right?
Oh, yeah.
Read. I wanted it to be that kind of thing. And in some parts it actually still is. But really the whole deal of mediumship for me was the shock of mediumship at 38 years old. So never saw a tea leaf reader in my life. I was married 18 years at that point. My daughter was 12. In my family, we bowled on the weekend and my dad fished and we played kick the can, as teenagers there was no talk of God, spirit, ghosts, the soul, the beings that we are. Just none of that existed for me at all. And so to be driving to pick my daughter up from school one day and suddenly hearing a man's voice and talking to me, and then within the ensuing days having black and white photographs flashed in my face and seeing people walk up behind people, and I thought I had lost my ever-loving mind.
Totally.
Oh my gosh.
I went from a complete lack of awareness of a spiritual world in that way, or souls in that way, or the who we are in that way, was really psychologically shocking.
I bet. And was there an event like that triggered your awakening at all?
No, I think it probably had to do with timing. And of course, when I did the deep dive backwards, I saw places like I was not a child pulling the covers over my head because I was seeing spirits as a kid, but I had some weird things that happened in myself. Like I describe at one point in the book this kind of like sliding apart when I was 14. I had this really weird feeling where I was driving in the back of my parents' car, coming back from Victoria to Sydney, and it was kind of warm out. It was like getting close to dinner time. And I remember this feeling as if, like, when a gum pack, the metal part slides out of the sleeve.
Yeah.
I felt like that sliding apart was happening in my body.
Oh.
And
Mm.
I shook it. I just was like, oh, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it went away. And by the time we got into town and we turned the corner, I started seeing the cars that were going by and the people in them like they were hollow. Like the people were hollow, and like the
Mm.
woman on the street with the dog was hollow. And again, I couldn't even label it as hollow back at that time. It was like a sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and again, it bothered me. It distressed me inside so much that I finally went, Mom, what time is the baseball game tonight? Like I spoke out loud
Mm.
to try to sort of get myself out of it. And that's the only time that ever happened. And then, and of course, when I was writing the book and I was going back in time, I realized, oh my God, I was in a moment at 14 of feeling the difference between my human being and my soul being. But there was
Mm.
no language. There would have been no way to
No.
define, even in thought, what that was.
No.
So writing the book, putting the stories together, and then going back in time really enlightened me to how much the sensitivity of my life early on played a huge role in the waking to spirits later on.
Absolutely. And how therapeutic that is as well, right?
It
Like,
was.
and that's one thing I definitely noticed on this journey is you do start to reflect back, or when you have more of an awareness of just how the world works and how energy works and how you work, you start to then see things like you're like, I know for myself, my mom was a very, very anxious, she still is, not as bad, but very, very anxious mother growing up.
Mhm.
And I realized, oh my gosh, I was so sensitive to it, but I had no idea that I was sensitive to it. So I was doing things, the people pleaser, all the things, not because my mom was outwardly, I was in a beautiful home, grew up in a beautiful family, all those things, but energetically I was picking up on it. So when you kind of get to this space and you can look back, I feel like it's so therapeutic to like sit there and go, oh my gosh, that's what that was, right?
Things make sense.
It
It's
all
so true.
clicks.
And
Yeah.
I was some people might label it black sheep. Like that's how I felt in the family, only because it was always, oh, Deborah, you're so sensitive. Oh, Deborah, you're over the top. Oh, Deborah, you're
Yeah.
so, do you know what I mean? Like I get the eye roll all the time. My mom said, like, if you were injured, you screamed. Do you know what I mean? Like the scale of 1 to 10 has never been a scale for me. If you said, where is it on 1 to 1,000? I'd go probably like 899. Do you know what I mean? Like scale 1 to 1,000. I don't know what the frick 1 to 10 is, but it certainly is not enough. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's that, and in hindsight, you go, well, that sensitivity is the very sensitivity that lets the subtlety of spirit in. Because
Yeah.
when the book is called The Turn of Attention, because you're turning your attention towards the subtlety of the energetic world, right? And so if you're hypersensitive like that, it just means that you have the ability to sense more than other people are sensing. And so back then it was painful for me. But now that's the greatest gift. The gift is the sensitivity. The gift is that very sensitive nature, which so many people are, and trying to integrate into a world that is dense and heavy and hard and has so many conditions can be very, very difficult for many people,
When you don't know what it is, right? Like,
when you don't know what it
when
is.
you don't know what it is, or you can't describe it, or nobody can describe it, that's when we tend to shut it down or put the walls up, right? To protect ourselves. And, I think I was just saying to Mandy before we popped on here, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just realized that I think I'm more clairsentient than I allowed or realized. And that's the obviously not for you, but for everybody else, that's the feeling. Because, through this process and through a year of deep healing, I'll open myself up to feel more, right? Even just emotions. And to the point where I'm like, wow, you're feeling that deep. But if that was me 20 years ago, feeling that would have scared the crap out of me.
Absolutely.
And right. Like I would have been like, no. And I realized why I shut it down, but now I can feel it and I can experience it and I can let it all in, but I also can witness it and be like, I can handle it. I know how to.
Well, you're safer now, right?
I'm safe now. Yeah.
You're safe now. And that's the thing. Like everybody has their trauma. Do you know what I mean? And they're not comparable really. I mean, we can think of comparisons of what, but trauma is unique to each individual, right? And then the coping mechanisms are either all feeling and no memory, or they're all memory and no feeling. Do you know what I mean? And you're going to kind of automatically sort of choose your path of the survival mode, right?
Yes.
And so in that, mine was a ton of booze and a ton of drugs. And
no way.
that was
you numbed it.
Hindsight. Yeah. I mean, for the very first time, I used to talk about this early on in sobriety. I used to talk about, I remember the first drinks I would have, and suddenly I was prettier, taller, stronger, smarter. All of a sudden, it was like liquid magic. Do you know what I mean? And I felt empowered and I felt centered in myself, and all of the strong self-defeating self-hatred that was in my mind, all the feelings of wanting to be out of my body, stopped.
Wow.
And so, but it was a very fast crash and burn for me, because as a sensitive person, I experienced I had no off button either. So I was, 17 years old, drinking a case and a half beer, polishing off a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
Doing a bunch of drugs, and there was no off switch. So I cracked myself. I lost my marbles at 18 for a very short period of time. But then, as I let go of those coping mechanisms and started to sober up and do what you're talking about, thaw out, get comfortable with the expression of emotions and tuning in and actually really healing over a long period of time. So 18 years into sobriety, suddenly, all of a sudden, there's a man talking to me in the car, and out of the blue, this spirits are starting to speak. That's what I think happened. I think I had come to a point of healing and sobriety and service in other areas of my life that spirit went, okay, now's the time.
She can handle it.
Serve this way.
Yeah. She can handle it. She's done the work.
The crap out of me.
Oh, I'm
like they could have just given us a bit of a warning.
That was like a bit of a bitch move. Like I was excuse me?
That's what I said too. I was like, how dare you? Like this is
how rude.
Yeah, the crap I was seeing when I was 18 and high. I didn't think was coming back to me again
without even any drugs at all.
Which, by the way, people, that is not a way to cope anymore.
No,
we're talking about the 1980s. That is those were different drug years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, it's a very serious thing people need to stay away from.
I do want to. I am curious on how you came out of that. So, like, I have one of my nieces is. I know because I've read her. She's very, very, very open, very sensitive. Like I know exactly what's happening. I know what is happening. But she is lost down that drug road, like completely lost. She's down in downtown Victoria, 15 years old. And it's so heartbreaking. It's devastating. Yeah. And there's only so much you can do. And I think for myself as an intuitive, and I can really feel her emotions too. So of course, like that's the fun thing about opening up your emotions. Cause like now I feel her pain, but looking at that going like, I also know that it's her journey. And then she needs to find that power to come out of it. But I know it's because of that, like exactly what you described. You did that to numb it. You didn't want to, it was overwhelming. So like what made
I didn't know that it was. I just knew that I didn't fit in my body.
yeah,
That it was something wasn't right with me. But booze made everything right with me.
everything.
So
Oh,
that's a temporary fix that doesn't last or destroys your life. And
yeah.
but have you ever heard of the practice of Tonglen?
Mm-mm.
Tonglen is like a Buddhist practice or Tibetan practice where it's I'll take your pain and give you some of my light. And so it look it up. It's a really
Okay.
beautiful practice, but I'm thinking about with your niece.
Mm-hmm.
In the world of metaphysics, of course, there's so much is misunderstood, but you know, people talk about protection practices and you know, you got to protect yourself and blah blah blah. And I'm just so not a person of that.
Yeah.
I have lots of different ideas about that. We won't go into them, but in Tonglen, so in metaphysics, some people might say, "Oh, you can't do that. Take somebody's pain and give them your light."
Okay.
But when you know that the light is all powerful, when you know that at the core of all of creation, at the core of everything, good, bad, and indifferent, is a source of divine light, there is not thing one for you to be afraid of, for you to not come to understand, for you to run from. There, when you're holding that kind of space, all you're doing is saying, I am so with you, and accepting and holding the space of the pain that you're going through.
Yeah.
I see it, I hear it, I acknowledge it. And I offer you in place of it some of this beautiful light that I understand with my heart and my being. There is nothing to be afraid of metaphysically in that practice. Do you know what I mean?
But how do you not hold it? How do you, because I think my problem, and I know actually I don't think I know, my problem is I tend to just hold it and then it stays in this being.
You won't like my answer.
Oh,
I will.
I will. Bring it.
It's a choice.
So easy.
It's
like
it's
anything in life. It's a choice.
It's a choice
to hold it and not release it.
Because so number one, cleansing, you shouldn't be holding it anyway. So to cleanse and clear.
Yeah.
There can be many different reasons you're holding it, because the particular pain that you're taking, you haven't resolved in yourself. So you've found an identity of pain that you're holding on to and going, well, I'm going to hold this here, but it's hers.
Not mine.
It's hers, but it's still stuck to me, then it's not mine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but there's layers to this. Are you okay?
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's like, then the other thing that I run across, and this may not be yours because I think you've done work in this, but you'll find this a lot of times. People go, oh, I'm holding everybody's pain. You do know what I mean? Sensitivity, I'm holding everybody's pain. It's almost like a, what do you call it? You called it with the car.
Oh.
What do you say? What's the word? You know, I'm so spiritual, I'm so sensitive that I'm holding.
You're flexing.
Yeah, flex. It's like
the flexing. Oh yeah, where you're like doing all that. Yeah.
Like an
flex. Yeah.
Reflexive sensitivity. It's like, no, you could just drop it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, because I don't even know that I'm holding it. It's like, then I get, into a practitioner or something. They're like, dude, you need to release. And I'm like, what? I don't want to hold it. Just get off of me. Get out of here. And I'm like, I don't want it. Go away. Yeah. I'm fine giving you my light, but get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
So then it's like trying to figure out how to be like, why are you hanging out here? Go somewhere else.
And also too, then there's the other thing. So this is what I mean. There's so many layers to it. The other thing is do you ever say, oh, hi, you're staying with me. How come you're staying with me? Do you need to hear something more from me? Do you want to show me something more about why you've not gone? So it's only this idea of really fear that gets in the way of us understanding really energetically what's happening.
What it is. Yeah.
And so, but you always have a choice. Like I remember being in a group once with this woman, and God love her, but she went into this state in meditation, and then she was like, something was taking her over. And I was like, no, it's not. Stop. And I talk to people that way. But I was like, no, it's not. Stop. And she's like, what? What do you mean? And then we went into a normal conversation. I'm like, see, you stopped. Like there was nothing that was not in your control here.
And you're completely in control. Like that's how, like I always kind of find like when friends or family or just anybody, and they're like, there's this fear there. And then I'm like, but you're in control of it. Like, you are empowered. You are in control of it. Like, this is right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you feel like you are.
No,
And that's the
absolutely.
difference, right? And
That's
I
true.
think that that's the part where that part of the dialogue needs to happen more and more, that we understand ourselves. Because when you're having a panic attack, no, you
you're
don't
out of
feel
control. Yeah.
I've passed out and had the ambulance called because I collapsed from panic.
Panic attack. I get panic attacks, and
So we understand.
It's not rational. You're not rational in that state. Like, it's not rational.
And when you have all that energy that you don't understand, that you've picked up, yes, it doesn't feel like you're in control.
No.
But you are. So navigating the ways to find how you can get a sense of being more in control comes from letting go of fear and doing things like we just talked about. Oh, is there something personal to me in this that I'm needing to hold on to what's going on here? Do I have my own emotions that I'm not expressing? Maybe, yes, I'm picking this up from her, but maybe the reason it's sticking to me is because I feel powerless in helping her. And if I hold on to this, then
there you go.
Right?
Ding, ding, she got it. Ding, ding, ding. I feel powerless in helping her. Absolutely.
Yeah. So aren't you sad about that?
Absolutely.
And so if you were to just slough off that holding on to her energy, well, does that make sense to you? No, you're holding on to it because you feel powerless and you feel sad about that. You feel empathetic towards her.
Yes.
Is that a bad thing?
No, it's not a bad thing.
So clarity is everything.
Yeah. So
not even just getting rid of it, but clarity about it.
Yeah. That's so fast. I'm going to look up this
practice of Tonglen.
Okay, thank you for saying it, Mandy. I was like, Tonglen. Words are hard, and I'm looking this up. Words are hard. And so that's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you. I love that.
Yeah, we're all about the healing. We talk about healing so much.
I know.
So, and we do totally understand like the layers. There's so many layers, and then empowering yourself with knowledge and, understanding of your own energy and taking control of that and all that sort of stuff is such a huge aspect of anybody's spiritual journey and awakening process. That's usually, I would say, like in my experience, like the first thing that kind of happens is starting to take control of how you are experiencing this world energetically.
And honoring that, right? Stopping comparing it to everybody else. Like, what is it that's going on for you? But that takes like looking at it and defining it and finding words for it or some kind of expression for it, right? Whether it's painting or writing or talking or whatever, right?
I love that.
Debra, when you were 38 and you were getting these images and all of these things, what happened next? So obviously, if that was to happen to anybody, I would imagine that we'd all be like, oh, I think I'm going crazy. Like, who do I
have a brain tumor?
Like,
I'd be like, what's happening?
Yeah. So what did you do after you started receiving all of these things?
I think so Keisha was 12 at the time, my daughter. And it's kind of like my entire world completely transformed within a 3-month period of time. So I started seeing and hearing spirits. Then my 2 boys that we adopted came into our lives, and without warning, like it just
at that time. Oh my gosh.
So I started seeing and hearing spirit. The boys came. No, pardon me. I started seeing and hearing spirit. We had a massive car accident within a couple of months on the Pat Bay Highway. Then the boys came. So it was like boom, boom, boom. So I went from, seeing spirit to having this crash where the car went up into the air, hit my head, tore my shoulder, broke my husband and I's teeth. And then the boys came in. So my whole life just completely spun on its axis. But there was nobody to talk to about the hearing spirits thing.
Yeah.
That'd be awful.
Except my 2 girlfriends that to that point, not once had we had conversations about spirit, about talking to ghosts. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I start communicating to them about what's happening? And they're like, yeah, that happens to people. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Yeah, that happens to people. They're like,
Why
"Why
haven't
haven't
we
we
talked about this?
How come you guys are so okay with this?" And they're like, it's okay, Deb. And I'm like, no, you don't understand,
How are you so cool with this?
Shout out to Carolyn and Yvette. I put them in the
Oh,
little picture. Let me
yay.
Oh,
I can't wait to read this book.
Me
Here they
too.
Here they are. See at the
Aw.
bottom here.
Oh, I love that.
Because we all met when our kids started kindergarten, and you know how you meet, how
Yeah.
you meet your moms. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And we all took care of each other so well. But they were my anchors. Do you know what I mean? Because they didn't think any of this was strange. Yet, I mean, every single other person in my life did. I mean, every single other person.
Wow.
So thank God for them. And that's why I put them at the end of the book to say, like, this book wouldn't even exist if they didn't exist for me.
Right. I love the soul contracts.
You would have shut it. Yeah, you would have shut it down, or it would have been stifled again.
Yeah, I mean, stifled again, or I don't know what I would have done with it. And because I think my mindset was this. I thought, well, I don't know who to talk to because I don't want to go to some fairy loving crystal ball hoop earrings wearing.
Nope. Nope.
Really?
Some
crystal toting. Do you know what I mean? Like, I say, if anybody says the word fairy to me, I'm out. Like, I had like,
I love it.
The movie idea, the outcast idea, the, weird
absolutely
idea
of the gypsy with the crystal ball.
I remember witches. Like I remember when we kind of
witches.
started. Yeah, witches. I remember like because thank God, like Mandy, like we had each other like through the spiritual awakening. But I remember like sitting with Mandy and another friend of ours, and the other friend kind of brought up chakras, and I remember seeing the thing, and I was like, cool, that's a little too woo for me, right?
Really
I was
ugly.
like, I've seen those things, those are ugly. And then I heard like one of them said something about witches, and I'm like, oh, okay, you've gone too far. You've lost me. I'm not into that. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a witch.
We read chakras.
we teach how to read chakras. Like, what the hell? But it's funny at the beginning when you are like that.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely not. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Our chakra is so ugly. I don't know. Like,
I was like, that's not coming in my house. That's
some
really
pastel
ugly.
colors here. I don't know.
I love, my favorite is the people like on like, I can't remember that guy. There's people that make fun of, do you know what I mean? Like so I think it's hysterical. Like I said to my sister, I would love to do a parody of like making fun of mediums and spiritual people because it is so hysterical. If you think of it in context to like, what people normally are like on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
it is ridiculous.
I think
I've seen those parodies of that guy because I'm just like, and even though like there's like things like in like because he's making fun of, and then there's things that I'm like, well, yeah, that is true, but it's hilarious, like the way you're like, sitting there and being like, oh, well, all you have to do is like, take your sage, and I'm like, oh my God, I love him,
and that's why I laugh too, because it's so true. It really
is true.
He doesn't realize how true it actually is, but it's I love that he makes fun of it.
And you have to have fun with, and that's I think again Mandy and I very much is like in class, like we've had our students kind of say like, oh my God, you guys just make it fun or you make it relatable, and I'm like, that's how it should be, or I wouldn't want to do it any other way, right?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't do it any other way,
and it's got to be practical to life. Like we're
is.
living life with partners and children and jobs and money and how all of the stuff of that. So
absolutely,
yeah,
I love that.
So I'm sorry if I detracted from that.
That's okay.
That's She's so good at bringing us back in.
Well, I was just about to say thank God for your two friends that were there as like in your life as your anchors and as your rock, because I think we can all think of somebody in our life that keeps us grounded and lets us feel safe to not feel crazy when you're opening up to, connect to beings that, aren't in physical form. And that can be very confusing when you first start doing it. So I'm glad that you had your two friends, and that's probably why you were able to continue. Now, how did you develop your gifts? Did you just start to learn how to understand them and spirit was teaching you, or were there teachers and mentors that helped you out?
So the metaphysical meetup group, there's a Victoria metaphysical meetup group so Carolyn, one of the friends in the beginning,
Like, what's happening?
What?
I
So
don't
Can
even
we
know about
go?
this.
so Carolyn, so now how long ago are we talking? 16 years ago, I think, 15 years ago, somewhere, 2008.
Okay.
So probably into early 2009.
Right.
Carolyn says, "Hey, Deb, did you know there's a metaphysical meetup group? We could go to that. Maybe there'd be people that you could talk to." And that's where I thought, oh, these crystal ball, very loving. And so I was scared to go.
Yeah.
And I went and I was greeted at the door by lovely people. And there was probably 50 people in the room.
50.
And then there was a speaker. Oh yeah, there
What?
used to be up to like, I think 150 at one point.
What?
And so and I don't know if they are still going. Maybe they are to somebody. It used to be in a gymnasium run by Dawn. And do you know there's a shop in Langford called the Hidden Gem?
Oh, yeah. It's just closed.
Yeah, it just closed. I know.
Yeah.
So Dawn opened that. So Dawn was the one that
Ah.
started years ago, and another woman named Sarah, this metaphysical meetup group. So anyway, long story short, Carolyn takes me there. And I come home that night saying to my husband, Norm, there's normal people. There's normal people. One of them works for like HR for the hospitals, and I was like so relieved that it was just a whole bunch of old hippies in a room.
Yeah.
And so that was then the gateway, like where there was people to actually talk to. So
Oh.
I did some, I think I did a development, thing of classes that Dawn did, but it was like practice. There was nowhere I went to enhance my mediumship today looks very similar to the very beginning. So I think the only thing that's really actually changed, in my mind, is that I'm more confident now than I was then.
Right.
Because over a period of time, I would say things or see things that the person I was sitting with, and for 2 years, I never turned to spirit intentionally. It was always unintentional. So I'd be sitting for coffee with someone and a woman would walk up behind them and then it would start. So I never made the move to reach out to spirit until one day, like literally 2 years in, somebody said to me, "Do you think you could do it on purpose?" And I was like, "On purpose? Like I've never thought on purpose."
What?
And like,
Maybe?
it was so passive, but it was like weekly. Like I go to the massage therapist,
Yeah.
she'd touch me and people would start flying through to me.
Oh my gosh. Like I'd be like, dude, where's my boundaries? Like back off. Like I remember
Yeah.
driving into town to go get my eyebrows tattooed. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden this lady came in and I was like, what? And then I'm like, no, I'm driving. And I'm like, nobody's to come in when I'm driving. That's enough. And then it was just like, and then it was like, oh my God, it's the tattoo artist's mom. And then I was like, no, I'm not unsoliciting nothing. And I'm like, sorry, not the person. I'm like, if she wants to see something, you go. But I just remember being like, no, I'm driving. That's not safe.
Oh, that is so sweet. I love that you have those boundaries. The only place I have those boundaries is when I'm going to sleep.
Oh,
I'm like, I don't like
gosh,
when somebody comes walking into my bedroom, I'm like, no, don't in my bedroom.
Do
No, I
you
wouldn't
see
want
them
that.
with your third eye or physical eye?
Both. So
Mm.
so sometimes I'll watch somebody, like, I'll be sitting in here and I'll watch somebody come, like, walking in my sliding glass door. That's more rare, but
How does that not freak you out though?
well, because they're not scary.
Well, I know. Yeah, I know they're not scared. I know.
They're being rude though. Like, they should
I'm
knock.
like, I should knock. No, but I'm like, this is
Yeah.
where I find like some people get really stuck. And we've had some students that, have seen with the physical eye, and it literally will paralyze them, and they don't want to go any further because they don't want to see it. And and this is something where it's kind of like, okay, like I don't know. It feels like for you, it was happening no matter what. And then when you knew that you could go and intentionally do it, it was like, in a way, you kind of stepped into the driver's seat.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, okay. Well, I'm driving this train. And so let's do this, not like, the other way around. And like I know with my niece, like she could see with her physical eye things. Right. And so that can be overwhelming, I would assume. Like, I know if I was laying in bed, like I can in the peripheral, cool, that's cool.
Yeah.
I can hear you, cool, that's cool. But if you literally walked up to my bed, I'd be like, what the get the
Well, what's so funny is that you're going, it's cool, I can hear you.
yeah.
It's cool, it's cool, your shadow over there. But it's like they're
being creepy. They're being creepy about it. Why am I cool with that? They're being sneaky. You're right.
You're more comfortable with a disembodied voice
Right.
than you are the actual body. Which
That's so true.
which, you know, so I think everybody just has to be comfortable with what's happening. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't bother me because they're just around all the time for all
it
of
becomes
us.
normal. Was it scary at the beginning?
For all of us, they're all around all the time.
Oh well. Oh yeah. No.
Like if you pulled back the curtain, there's a whole bunch of people around.
Like, hey everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, like,
so we're just pretending that they're not all there.
That is so true. We are pretending.
We are pretending.
I know energetically I can feel them all, but I just pretend that I don't. You're right.
We're like
You're
this.
right.
We're like,
That's true.
Absolutely. 100%. So yeah.
Just calling us on our bullshit, Debra. Thank you.
I love that.
But it's, and that's why the same thing is when people say, I'm clairsentient or I'm clairaudient, like I can only see or I can only hear. Well, that's not actually true.
No.
Like
because you have it all.
Because you can see, you can hear, you can smell, you can taste, you can touch. Well, then Spirit's gonna help you in whatever way is also easy for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you might have something that's more dominant to you. Like a painter, somebody who's visual might just be able to see more, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get a smell or that you're not going to hear something. So sometimes we limit ourselves by saying, well, I'm only this, or I can't do that. Well, actually you can, you just have to stop saying that you can't, because it might not be common to you, but there might be that spirit that suddenly says something and then you go, oh geez, I can hear, you know?
Well, and it ribbons, like we kind of like when we're going through the course and talking about the clairs, it's like, okay, we're going to identify them so you know what they are, and you're going to have some that come more naturally. I'm like, but eventually, like Mandy and I don't sit there and be like, oh, I'm using my clairvoyance right now. Like it ribbons.
Right.
I'm not like, and now I'm turning to my clairaudient, and
That's
it's like ribbons into all of it. But we're so human in the sense that we need to
label and organize.
Yeah, like all of those things. So
understand it.
So interesting. Yeah, like how it kind of comes.
But
through.
I like how you say, like, is it comfortable? You know what was the most overwhelming part in the beginning? Going back to that was the I couldn't cope with the love. And I know that sounds really weird.
Absolutely.
But I would get into bed. Sometimes I'd be in the car, but sometimes I'd drive home and get into bed after something happened, and I would be guttural sobbing for an hour or more because do you both have children?
Yes.
Okay. So you know how you love your children. Like loving a child is probably as intense as it gets, as whole as it kind of gets in life. I mean, we can love a lot of people, but you love your child in a way that is so deeply connected, right? You love your children that way. It
is intense. Yeah.
Connecting to the spirit world is like 1,000 times that intensity. And when people would come through, I would be overwhelmed with the love of like heaven in that way.
Yeah.
That is too much for the human body. And so it took me a long time to sort of adjust to meeting here on my side a little more than meeting on their side, because I would keep getting pulled so into their world,
right,
that it would be hard to recuperate being in this one.
In the density of this one.
So can I ask then, did you struggle at any point with even wanting to exist on this side?
Multiple times. I would be in an experience and then I would have to go walk around the block and go. I mentioned this to a client the other day, actually, because we were talking about some issues with them. And I said, I remember one day going, like, I don't know how to do any of this anymore. Like, I don't know how to be here in this world of spirit that is so loving and so beautiful and so whole that I don't know how to do the dishes now. Like, or to like everything felt not meaningless, but
But what's the point?
I just
Like,
struggled,
Yeah.
yeah, with
sometimes it's
that
what's the
aspect.
point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I walked around the block a few times and I came back. And when I opened up my computer, there was a thing that came up by a yogi, and I wish I had snapshotted it at the time. But literally, the words up on my screen were, the point is not to live here or there, but to integrate both, both like
Mm.
heaven and earth. I can't remember how,
Bridge the two,
Damn.
like to
but
bridge
it
the
was
two.
like mastery was
Mm.
living
Yeah.
that state here on earth. And it was like literally I walked the block twice and came back to that
Get
coming up on my
off.
Wow.
You gotta
So-
love spirit for bringing,
Yeah.
like, right? You sit there and you're
Oh.
like, you can't make this shit up.
Mhm.
Like,
No,
those are the moments that you
Yeah.
go, they literally brought that to you.
You can't. Like, I mean, it
Mhm.
happens all the, that happens all
Yeah,
the time.
it's
It happens
amazing.
profound,
Yeah.
proof of spirit, I mean, is just, it is provable.
Mhm. Mhm.
Provable. And
Absolutely.
so there's no more of this aspect of like, you can't prove it. Yeah, actually you can,
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody, I actually have a chapter that says concrete proof.
Love
Oh.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to read it. I'm
Me
like, it's gonna
too.
be
This
so
is
fun.
so-
I'm like,
it
I
is so
love
much
that.
It's such a weaving, and I learned so many things, and there's been so many losses for myself too in between, from the time of writing. There's stories. We've lost Norm's dad and his brother and my girlfriend's daughter and a beautiful man named Tugmar, and I've lost 3 aunts and uncles, and so there's been a lot of death within my own family
Mhm.
this period of time, and and friends, and so yeah, so sometimes it is hard to be between
Mhm.
space, but it's also the greatest blessing in the world. And I just think that it is part of mastery. It is
Mhm.
part of being human
Yeah.
and having to navigate the human conditions and the human experience and the human ego and all of that kind of stuff. And gain some aspect of a sense of humor about it too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
know?
true. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
You have to be able to have
yeah.
fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Like I get mad and make fun of my spirit guide all the time, and I'm like, Bandy will be like, Allison, you're being so mean to H, and I'm like, he knows what he signed up for. I'm like, he doesn't have to be such a stick in the mud. I'm like, so he knew what he signed up for. He's gonna get what he gets. You don't be
Yeah.
upset.
And spirit
because I'm
guides
not.
are so important, aren't they? They
They
are so important.
are.
Yeah, and everybody has them, everybody
Yeah.
has them, and that's such a beautiful thing. If you want me to tell you, I'll tell you one. I have a
Yeah.
nephew who, way back kind of in the beginning of my mediumship, I was sitting with his mom. I think it was like Easter or Thanksgiving or something. We're sitting on the bench, and of course, she's my cousin, or my cousin's wife, and the child are second cousins to us, but we didn't really know a lot about their families intimately. And this man comes walking up beside me and he says, "I'm Mark." And I'm like, okay. And so I said to my cousin, I said, "Do you know who Mark is?" And she goes, "What? Who's Mark?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm asking you who Mark is." This man
What?
just
Who's
walked up
Mark?
and said, "I'm Mark." And she's like, "Debra, you got to tell me who he is." I'm like, I don't know who he is." She said the whole time she was pregnant with her son, this man named Mark kept coming to her in her dream. It
Just got
drove her,
chills.
it drove
Me
her
too.
insane.
Oh.
She asked friends, family, everybody, "Who is Mark? I don't know who Mark is." Now, at
Oh
this
my
point,
God.
her son was about 7 or 8 years old. So I said, "Okay, well, like, I'll find out." So I turned back to Mark and I'm like, "You're hearing this, like, who are you?" And he says, "Her son has to stop soccer and go into karate." That's all he said to me.
Oh, I have goosebumps
I
everywhere.
keep getting
I-
goosebumps too.
So I said, "He's saying your son has to stop soccer," and this is a big soccer family,
Mm.
"and go into karate." She's like, "Debra, he's been telling us he wants to stop soccer and do karate." And I said, "Well, then you have to listen, because this Mark," oh, that's what I said. I said, "Well, Mark, tell me about his bedroom when he was a kid, because I never saw his bedroom." He described his bedroom to a T.
Wow.
So he had been with him since he was a child, and clearly as he was in his mom's tummy.
He was coming
And-
to her. Oh,
Is it
Yeah,
his guide?
it was his guide. Yeah.
it was his spirit guide.
It's his,
So
his guide, not
Yeah.
hers. His,
Yeah.
yeah.
he literally said, so they stopped that week. He stopped soccer. He went into karate. His self-esteem, his behavior, everything
God.
changed.
Wow.
And after he went through all these levels of karate, he went back to soccer. And it was like the best thing that happened to him. It was at a time when his life needed boosting. Can you imagine how much this man, Mark, loves that boy?
Oh, I
Mm.
know.
And
That's
is
the thing.
there
Like,
to help him make that shift in his path? Like,
Wow.
it's just like, and the thing is, like, what's amazing is, like, spirit will take that opportunity when they have that opportunity to come in, right? They will hijack, just like I went to Calico Cats with a friend who wanted to go, tea leaf or whatever, and spirit hijacked and wanted to talk about Mandy. I was like, get out of here. It's about me.
I love
Like,
that.
beat it, Mandy. But that's what will happen. And so like, how beautiful was that his spirit guide was like, okay, I've got this opportunity. I'm coming in. Like, I just so beautiful. I love
Yeah,
it.
I do too. I mean, to me, it's just like I see it all the time. Love, 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 love,
Mhm.
compassion, unconditional love, empathy, understanding,
No
clarity.
judgment,
No
like we don't have judge. Like, there's no, you're not going
No.
to, yeah. And I think that's a big one, that people get caught up in. And then, no, they're not
Mhm.
judging you.
No.
It's so, oh
No.
man, that's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
that unfolding, do you know what I mean? From going from having, Yvette and Carolyn hold me in those first days into meeting other people that had a language for what was happening, and then just moving along and trusting spirit. There were lots of times that I was lonely. I still am. Some days I still am, because I'm not part really of a very big group. Like I'm not with other mediums and with other, very much at all. And so sometimes it's a little bit isolating and lonely, but still powerful and good in its own way.
Beautiful.
And beautiful. I just think we're so lucky to be able to have the dialogue, and also too to be in a world where Dr. Eben Alexander wrote Proof of Heaven. Anita Morajani wrote Dying to Be Me. Dr. Russell Kennedy wrote a wonderful book called Anxiety RX. So there's, and in there he talks about the energy of the body and all of that kind of stuff. So we're talking about like neurosurgeons and neuroscientists and people that are in the medical field. Like I get a lot of clients from therapists, from psychiatrists, from doctors, and lots of clients that are doctors themselves and psychiatrists themselves.
Right.
It's there's a world.
It's coming together. We are
Dr.
seeing,
Brian Weiss,
we are
right?
seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. David R. Hawkins, he was a physicist, and he's one of my favorites. With the map of consciousness and the emotions and
the frequency, right? Like
and all
measuring
that kind of stuff.
It's like it's beautiful to start to see these worlds start to come in and overlap. And and this is like, Mandy and I, like we're like, oh my God, if we could just have like a therapist, I could sit here and like read my shock, and then we can like sit there and let's talk about it, like so many things. If we combine, if we have a teacher that could sit there and read the energy of the room and realize what energetically they need, they could do it. Like, it's so beautiful. And I think we are going to get there. I think we're already seeing this like overlap happening. And it's like so amazing to hear that, people are referred to you from doctors, from psychologists, like, yay.
Yeah.
And they themselves come. Do you know what I mean? They themselves.
I love that.
I think that that's really critical, because there's there's things to be understood. Like we have, when it comes to energy, there's imprints of imagery and sound and taste and touch and emotion within energy. Somebody can have an experience in the middle of the mall, and you can 3 hours later walk through the middle of the mall. All of a sudden you're having visions, or you're having, do you know what I mean? Because energy that's expressed in an area. That's why I say metaphysics. Psychics and mediums, there's a lot of psychics and mediums that do not understand what they're doing, and are confusing many things, because just because you're picking up information doesn't mean a spirit's talking. right? So a lot
No.
of people say your mother is saying, no, your mother's not saying that. You're picking up the energy of that,
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I've learned a lot about that over the course of, just experiencing
Doing.
years of this,
Yeah.
that it's like learning to determine what is psychic and what is mediumistic. And I think that that's critically important, because if you're saying
Absolutely.
that you're talking to someone's loved one,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get
Absolutely.
on the other side.
No.
And do you know what I mean?
That's
No.
why Ali and I are so careful with mediumship. We feel like mediumship is so sacred, and there's so much responsibility on the side of a medium and a psychic who does mediumship readings,
Mhm.
because there's so much grief involved in a mediumship reading and connecting to past loved ones. Like Ali and I don't offer mediumship because of that. We haven't developed enough of our mediumship skills in order to feel confident enough to hold space for somebody in that capacity. There's just so
and
much.
I don't think it's our calling in that sense. Like it's not what we're.
Understand that. But
Yeah.
it is so great that you understand. And one is not better than the other.
No.
They're
Yeah.
just incredibly different, because you're right.
Yeah.
One, you are holding space for a mother whose son has just died
Yep.
3 months ago, and you have got to have your shit together.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You cannot be passing off any of your own stuff on to that grieving person. So number one, you have to know that the soul and spirit is there, and you have to demonstrate that they are, which
Mhm.
means that you've got to provide
The evidence.
the evidence that is there. And evidence can look very different. There are mediums that work very differently. We see that
Mhm.
all the time. So again, one not being better than the other, but there is a
Mhm.
difference between mediumship and psychic ability. And
Absolutely.
as somebody who is doing mediumship, you have to understand the difference. So a lot of times I'll say, I don't actually know who's saying that, or if I'm picking something up psychically, but I am not going to attribute it to somebody's dad unless the dad is saying, I blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not going to make it fit.
Blah, 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 blah. No,
Yeah. You're not going to make it fit. If it hasn't come in clearly, you're not just going to place it somewhere, and
they have to be willing to be uncomfortable.
Mm.
And you have to be willing
absolutely
to feel foolish. You have to
Right.
be willing to sit just in the state of what is,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
just let things be and not force things, and just listen.
Absolutely.
Have to-
Mandy and I had taken a mediumship course with Danielle Sarank, and I remember, going into these practice sessions, you'd be teamed up with different people in the course, and it was absolutely frightening. So this was after we had developed our intuition and the chakras and all those. It was like the
Akashic records.
The
we
Akashic
can read
records.
energy. We can read energy.
So it was more of a like, I love to learn. Let's just learn. But it's, I definitely Mandy's always been the one that's like, sure, I'll do it. And if I fail. And I'm like,
yeah, so good.
I don't want to be wrong. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. And it was the hardest thing to sit there and on the spot. And I'm like, and when you're a perfectionist, I was like, holy crap. And I went through a bit of a dark night of the soul through that. So even though it's amazing how we get put into positions to do things. We took this course not to be mediums, but to understand as teachers the difference, I guess. We see this all in retrospect. But then I was also I know for myself the soul lessons that I got from it, because I was so scared to let go and be wrong that I just wasn't even going to try.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I remember showing up to my next meeting and I was like, I am asking to be wrong. Make me be wrong, because I need to be comfortable with the wrong, because I can't, I have to get past this. It's so hard. But it was such an amazing experience to experience the difference.
Yes.
Right. So even though, we're all
totally
talking about the same thing. Me talking to my spirit guide is a spirit on the other side. Me talking, a past loved one coming through. Yeah, it's an energy, but it is very, very different. And I found it's like how did I describe it? It's because it's through the practice and the error that we figure out whatever this kind of scribe is, whatever it is. Right. And and I remember one time I could see it from above, and I was like, oh, did your grandma take you to the park? Because I see you on a swing and all this. And they're like, no, my grandma died before I was born. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, what an idiot. And then when it happened again,
Yeah.
that's when it like clued in, where I was like, oh my, when I'm
Seeing it
seeing
from
it from above, they're watching instead of seeing it on the ground.
Yes, that's such a good demonstration, Allison, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what has to happen for each person. And
Yeah.
I think everybody has mediumistic ability.
Yeah.
I just think you have to know when
Yes.
you're working mediumistically and when you're working psychically.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so that's the thing. I think that everybody has the capacity. Not everybody is going to do it.
Mhm.
It's not meant for everybody.
No.
Not everybody might be able to do it to a wonderful degree, but I think we're soul first. We're
I
spirit
know.
first. Our
Yeah.
loved ones are all around us. That's our primary way of
Yeah.
relating to each other. So really, it's
Yeah.
just the human that's in the way. So
Yeah.
to say that everybody isn't mediumistic is just not true, because
Yeah.
that's the nature of our relationship to one another.
I love
But
that.
you have to know the mechanism through which it is that you're working, especially if you're saying you're doing mediumship and then you have a loved one who's grieving in front of you.
Oh.
That is the point.
Huge
But you have
responsibility.
to practice that
Yep.
in order to get what your language is, what the way that you
Totally.
that's why I do this Divine Self series. So, I have people, and it's all on Zoom, but they're like from Norway and
Oh.
and New York and down in South Africa.
I
And we
love
just
that.
get together, and it's just experiment after experiment, and people coming through. But even in Thursday night session, I put something together, and 3 of the people that were channeling something for someone else had just the most beautiful gifts to give each other. And these aren't people that think that they're mediums or that they're mediumistic.
Wow.
And so it just shows that under the right conditions and that letting go, you start to
Yes.
learn to understand. Like, why does juggling lemons mean joy to me? I have no idea.
Right?
But much like you're up above, if I see lemons being juggled, it means that the spirit is extremely happy. Very,
Yeah.
very.
It's like a map. It's like a like it's like
is.
you have
Legends.
a legend. That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
Mandy.
That's
with the
in the
words.
book.
So, the legends.
Literally,
Ah,
at the end of the book, you're very psychic. You're
I
very
love the
mediumistic.
legends. Yes. Because
That's
it
how,
is a legend.
yeah, that's
It
how the
really
book
is.
ends. I talk about
Is legend.
talk about
No
the legend.
way. I'm like my solar plexus. Whenever I would go in to see the solar plexus on somebody, it was butter. So it was a stick of butter. If the butter was really solid and stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, you got a strong sense of self, maybe a bit too much. And then I would see it like dripping off the table, and I'm like, oh, okay, we've got a lot of like self-worth issues and stuff. But I'm like,
We have to
butter?
clean up this mess.
Yeah. And I just remember being like, this is the weirdest thing in the world.
That's amazing.
But it's
Yeah.
the legend, right? The
Yeah,
legend. Like
it is a legend. But
yeah.
but you're right. You have to be in it, and you probably know that too, Mandy. You have to be in the experience of it to
Yeah.
discover it
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
not be afraid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I have a question for you about the difference in like what your most annoying what what is that? What is so annoying? No, what your most annoying part of the mediumship? Like for me, the only thing of smell is cigarettes. So that's the only thing I seem to tend to smell. It doesn't happen all the time. God. And I'm an ex-smoker, so I'm not even like going on that. But mine, the only thing that ever has come through and will not leave is the smell of cigarette smoke. And I'm like, all right, let's just move on. So I'm thinking in my head, is there something that kind of comes through, like, a repeating song? You've had that, Mandy, where you're like, somebody's been trying to, that kind of is just like, all right, I could do without.
I don't think so. I think I'm more, if there's any frustration, I'm frustrated by myself. So I don't ever feel frustrated by spirit. I feel sorry to them. So if they're repeating something to me, I'm not getting it. And because if I were getting it, they would stop. They're not annoying me. So I think I feel more frustrated by myself. And oftentimes I will say, I'm really sorry. I don't understand what you're doing. I hear what you're doing, but I'm not sure that I understand it. If the timing isn't right, then just stop for now and maybe come back again
when
later.
It's meant
or I'm not understanding it this way. Like maybe you could show me something, or maybe I could hear something else with it. And then usually they will add something to it that will bring clarity.
So instead of just like this, because the cigarette smoke, like I've gone and said, okay, I don't want to smell this anymore. Like, please, let's stop. And
Yeah,
they won't leave me.
because then something's not completed for them. And so you opened the door to them and then you're saying, no, don't.
Don't.
And so you could say, I can still smell the cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
Now, however, the other thing you have to watch for is your own psychology, because the thing is,
Mm,
again, we always have to question ourselves. So the cigarette smoke thing may be lingering because there's a connection and a memory connected personally for you. So again,
mhm.
always self-reflecting
Yeah.
to personal. Why am I still holding on to this? So the spirit is not
Yeah.
taunting or torturing us or teasing us or any
No.
of that stuff. So either I haven't got it, right? So lots of times things will happen in my body. If I've got cancer that's in my liver, it's not going away until I've resolved it. And so
Yeah.
the moment that I resolve it, it dissipates from my body. I can no longer feel it.
Mm,
So usually spirit, but that's when I'm working, right? So
yeah.
spirit pressure on with something.
Yeah.
Um, but if the person says, "Oh, I know, yeah, that is my Aunt May, and she
Yeah.
did have liver cancer,"
Yeah.
but if the liver cancer stays there, then I'll say, "I love that your Aunt May had liver cancer and that you understand the M name with the cancer, but it's not Aunt May
Mm.
because I can still feel it."
Oh, because
Then
if
I'll
it
say,
was Aunt May, it would have gone.
it would have gone. Then so
Interesting.
I'll say to the spirit, well, this isn't enough, and I can't just have an M name. Is there a masculine or feminine? What side
Oh,
of the family are you on? What else has happened in your life? And then sure enough, it'll be like, well, I have two sisters and a brother. Oh, okay, now I know that there's a group of 4 kids. 2 of them are sisters, 2 of them are brothers, right?
Mm.
mm,
So yeah, so
yeah.
kind of like if you have this
Yeah.
and it's not going away, you could say, Spirit, if you're bringing this to me, number one,
Yeah.
if this is psychological for me, then help me to understand that.
Why? Yeah.
But if it's not psychological for me and you're trying to get something across to me, I'm not working right now, or it's
Yeah.
not working for me right now, or I don't understand it. Could you add something to it? So do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Instead of going, this is bothersome
Yeah.
me alone,
Well, and I
there's
did
more.
connect to it because I did connect because it was persistent and
Good.
it definitely it had to do with a neighbor upstairs that I literally just met. And
Good.
I said, I'm not willing to go up. Like I'm not willing. That's I think the hardest part, right? Because I had just met them. I
Yeah.
had disclosed a little bit of what I do, which can really either
Yeah.
you never know what you're gonna get. You're either gonna get, oh my God, do not go to floor 3. She
Yeah.
is crazy.
There's a witch down there.
There's a witch down there, or it's accepting. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm downstairs because it came from there. And finally, because I was just like, it's not going away. And then so I was like, okay, like what is this connected to? And then it was connected to one of them. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go and talk to them. Like
Yeah.
I'm not
Good.
comfortable with that and would
Good.
not leave. And I was like, I'm not doing it.
Rude.
Yeah.
Rude.
Yeah.
I know.
But then also too,
It's
you
so
can
hard.
you also don't have to resolve it, but you can give empathy to the spirit. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Like,
You can say, I'm
I'm
so
not going to do it,
sorry.
or I am going to do it. That's a
Yeah.
person that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
imagine that a person was coming to you saying, I want to
Mm.
talk to the people on the 4th
Yeah.
floor. And you're like, well, I actually can't go talk to them, but can I help you some other way? Or is there something
Yeah.
that you need to hear from me? Or do you just want to say something to me? I know that you're here and trying,
Mm-hmm.
and I really appreciate that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not going to happen. There's other ways you can even encourage them. Say there's other ways that you can
Can
reach
get
them.
them. Yeah,
And
but it's not through
absolutely,
me. It's not,
yeah,
yeah, it's not through me. And I like that. And of course I was
yeah,
nice to them.
yes,
And then when I was like, you're not going away, like I'm like,
yeah,
I don't like the smell. I don't like it.
yeah,
But it's like, but I do like the sense of like, even just the like, because
acknowledgement,
in my head I was like, does that mean I have to go talk to them? Because I'm
right?
like, I don't want to.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I'm not comfortable with that. And so I do like the way of then being like, okay, I don't have to go talk, but I can hold empathy or say,
Mhm.
I totally feel you, or,
yeah,
try to work with this person. If they want to book a reading, like I never
yeah.
want to force my stuff onto,
Oh,
you're happy to come to me, but they're going to have to do it the opposite way, right? Like,
yeah.
I just had I connected to a past somebody from my past. Their mother passed away, and they came through, and very, very strongly. And I was telling my parents, because I said, oh man, she came through, and they're like, oh, are you going to tell them? And I said, no, that's not my place. I'm like, I don't even know. They're so grieving. And I just kind of said to this spirit, I'm like, like, I totally see it, but I'm not going to overstep that line. If you want it, they can come to me. Yeah. Right. Sure. They don't even know I do this. I'm like, they're not even aware that I do any of that. So I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm like,
you don't know where people are at. And we do no harm, right?
No, you don't know where people are. And it's so fresh, right? Too, where I was like, no, I'm not going to overstep that line, but I like how you said that, Debra. Like, I like the way you approach it, in the sense
who doesn't
of, like,
want acknowledgement, living
right?
in the physical or not, who doesn't want acknowledgement?
Totally. Absolutely. I love that way of thinking of it.
Yeah. Sometimes that's enough.
It isn't. Oh, that's enough. I like that. Thank you. I love that.
Back to your book, just before we wrap up, Debra. So your book is, it is about your journey into mediumship. And we've talked a bit about that today. And then there's also a lot of stories in there of your mediumship experiences.
Tons. Like, it goes everything from, meeting the spirit guide, into suicide, overdose, and murder, into, there's so many layers. That's why it's so darn thick.
I love that. I can't wait.
So long, because it's, spirit's timing, concrete proof, money and meaning, signs and symbols, complicated and traumatic deaths, premonitions and fate, right? That's a big one, right? Absolution and amends. Power of angels, gods and guides. The paranormal, right? Sitting with the equipment in the dark spaces. And,
have you done paranormal stuff?
Yeah. It's really, Dawn gave me a beautiful gift, in that I resisted it for long. So I thought, oh my God, no, like, there's no way I'm doing anything paranormal. And she's like, Debra, just do it,
Oh, it's my fun, God. I swear.
It was probably the best thing I ever did, because all my fear left me.
Good, smart. Face it right on. Yeah.
So, I mean, you do have to be respectful, but especially when you're dealing with places that are, quote unquote haunted, or that spirits are actually grounded and active,
making themselves known,
like my house.
So there's good forms of that, and then there's challenging forms of that. So you do kind of have to be ready.
That's so fascinating.
But it's so much fun. So I cover a lot of things through the stories of what's happened. So it's just me saying, this is how I feel about things based on this occurring, and you see this occurred, but this also occurred, and
I love stories. It's so funny, because Mandy and I, we're gonna be doing or have already, I have no idea when this gets released, but talking about ghost stories, whatever that is, but like, talking about these things, and like, then having the perspective of like normalizing it, where it's not like, we have the Hollywood, the ghost stuff, and then you're like, but what's actually really happening on the other side? Is it's just, it's not this like, this type of thing, but I'm like, but it's like, we're very fascinated as humans, right? Of all of that. And I'm shocked that the paranormal made you less fearful.
Yeah, it did. It took all my fear away, actually. And I actually wrote a book with a woman named Barbara Smith. So she writes, when you see at the ferries or in malls, ghost stories of Canada, ghost stories.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Barbara Smith, she's the author of many of those books, about 39 of them. And her and I wrote a book called Deadly Paranormal together. So it's on Amazon. So she presented me with stories, and she said, what I want to do is I'm going to give you a story, a myth, a legend, old castle in Ireland, John F. Kennedy's car, those kinds of things. She says, and then I want you to tune into them and write your mediumship impressions.
So cool.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
It was such a fun journey. I mean, even right to the point of Jack the Ripper story was just like, oh my God.
You tuned
stuff
into that?
happened was- oh yeah. it was-
Out. I am downloading that
I
after
learned
this.
a lot of things. Let me say, I learned a lot of things going through that process, but spirit showed up in incredible form. And one of those stories I also put in this book because it blew me away. Like I
Wow.
was literally on my patio tuning into this place where these bombs had dropped and this war had happened. And literally within an hour, my phone went ding. And I was like, oh, what's that? And a woman who hadn't seen me for a year suddenly out of the blue messaged me on Messenger and said, I just want you to know how meaningful the work that you do is, and I want to thank you for it. Like that's out of the blue. So
Yeah.
I stopped in the middle of my email that I was sending to the editor. I'm giving up a story in the book, but anyway, but that
It's a teaser.
it's
a teaser.
It's a teaser.
Yeah.
But I paused the email I was halfway through just after I typed 500 tons of bombs was dropped in this area. I read her message and I go, oh, and I reply back to her, that's so nice. Thank you for doing that. I said, I'm not, why? Like, why did you, what prompted this?
Yeah.
And before she could answer, I just went into a blah about how difficult a time I was having with the story I was working on about this bomber on D-Day.
Wow.
And pause, and I can see the little things going that she's typing. She's like, my dad was a bomber on D-Day.
Oh God, I just
Goosebumps again. Stop it with the goosebumps.
Yeah, stop with the goosebumps.
Oh,
I
my
know.
face.
I'm like, are you kidding? I just typed the line on D-Day. Bing.
Oh my God.
Like,
That's so cool.
It is
It's
so
like,
cool.
you cannot make that
You
up.
can't
No.
make that up.
So
It's-
it's
I-
just like,
so it doesn't go away because like I don't know how many times Mandy and I like will come across them and then I'll get like so excited or I'll pull an oracle card and it'll be exactly what you were, whatever it is, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and then I'm like, I hope I never lose. No, so you never lose it.
No,
Okay,
people. I
thank
mean,
God.
maybe some people do, but I don't. I act like a
No.
giddy schoolgirl half the time. I'm like, can you believe that happened? And people go, "You do this all the time." I'm like, yeah, but look at what happened. Like that's just freaking crazy, you
Oh, I
know.
love
So
that.
I'm
no,
so
6
glad.
years in, I'm still like, that's crazy. How did that happen? You know?
Oh, I'm so glad. I love that because it is. It's
It
so
is.
It's
amazing.
amazing. It is. It's beautiful.
And you do mediumship, like your full-time work is in the metaphysical realm,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
And
that.
so you do
Our goal.
mediumship readings,
Yeah.
type of thing. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so it's a lovely difficulty to have, but I'm
Yeah.
booked a year solid. So
Yeah,
it's
I bet.
amazing.
a year out. And but now I'm starting to, there's a frustration in that. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
people go, why can't I get into your calendar? And I'm not complaining about it. It's a lovely issue to have. But
Yeah.
what it says to me is how much people are hurting over grief. And so because really that's why they see me, because and I don't advertise anywhere, but people are like, they've had an experience. And usually a lot of the people that see me have never seen a medium before. Do you know what I mean? They're kind of
Wow.
like my family. They're kind of going, they're a little shook because they're going, wait a second, this girlfriend just had this session and her son came through and she like, listen to this tape, because I get everybody to record their sessions with me. So if anything is missed, you know, and of course every session is completely different, but some are jaw-dropping, like where even afterwards I go, Spirit, I don't know how you just did what you did, but I am so overwhelmingly grateful that you were able to do that. And others are like walking through molasses, you know.
Right.
But you know, well, no, but it depends.
No, it is.
And I don't even know what the factors are often, you know. So but the thing is that it just says that a lot of people are needing the kind of grief support that actually gives hope. You know what I mean? And that teaches us that we have an eternal connection to each other that is physically temporary.
Yeah.
Physically temporary. I like
But
that.
who we are to each other is always intact. but it feels so severed. I mean, even for me, when I lose my loved ones, I still feel the severing, even though I see spirit all the time. I miss them and I love them, and you want them in the tangible, physical way. But we can't have that. So secondary to that is understanding that they are right brushing past our cheek, that they are the one that placed the feather on the placemat in front of the door, that they're trying as best they can, that they literally made that radio turn on right at the moment that song was singing those words, that the phone that's been dead for a year and a half, they suddenly got Siri to come up on it. Do you know what I mean? That if we're going through the stages of life and feel like it's been 20 years, my dad's been gone, and surely he can't see the wedding that I just had, and he comes through and describes, oh, you just got married and these are the things that happened, and this is what you like. Had a woman today, her mother's been gone for a long time, and she was talking about her wedding, and I said, your mom's saying that she made the clouds part and the sun come out right at the moment. She's like, that's exactly what happened. She's like, everything spread apart and the light was there. So it is an eternal relationship. Like we're not lost to each other, though it feels that way, So I think that mediumship in that form does that. It doesn't stop grieving, but it does give back some of that aspect of, okay, this is temporary.
And
that
it supports,
still there.
Supports some of the healing.
Absolutely. Have you ever found somebody, I guess in a way, get addicted to, like, I could see
readings?
it being, like I could see it being where somebody's so grief stricken that they just want to keep coming to that channel to make that connection. And because obviously on the psychic side, yes, you can have people that are addicted to readings, like I can't do my life without, like, tell me what to do type of thing. But I could also see it on that side, when you're the conduit, when you're the bridge between them and their loved one, this wanting to do it all the time. And like, even personally, like if I was to lose somebody in my life, like I could see family being like, hey, can you connect to, like, I need that connection. And like, have you ever experienced that?
I can't say what people do on the other side of a session with me, but
do they come back or try to?
It's not something I have seen people maybe once a year.
Okay.
Once every couple of years. But a medium should not encourage that kind of behavior, because what you want, especially in a session, is that you've shown them that the loved one is a part of their life. Then it's up to them to further develop that relationship or keep talking to their loved one. You can't bring their loved one back.
No, because you can't be that vessel constantly.
No, that's not healthy.
It's not healthy.
But you can teach them that they're a part of your day-to-day life.
Yeah. And so, that they're okay with it.
Yeah, they're a part of my day-to-day life. When Norm's dad shows up, I know when Norm's dad's around, so I'll say something to Norm. He's like, I was just thinking about dad. Do you know what I mean? So so it's that aspect of, it's okay for them to be a part of our day-to-day life, but they're not with me. They're not with the medium. If you want that relationship, then that's something to be developed.
Yes.
For you, which doesn't mean you have to go into being a medium, but you have to just start trusting that they're there listening. They've demonstrated it in the session. They've shown you, they've said their name, they've talked about how they died, they've brought through, specific things about your experience, right? Together. They've talked about maybe some regrets or some things that they, want to make amends for. They've talked about healing that they've seen gone on in the family. There's a whole bunch of different things that they do to show that they're there. So then, knowing,
you gotta trust it.
You have to trust it. You've got to trust it for sure.
Absolutely. Because they're even telling you the signs that they sent, right? Like you're even saying, like, oh, they sent that feather, and then they're going, I knew it was them.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. It's our own dismissal. Our own dismissal.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the spiritual awakening path, is becoming more in tune with the universe around you and those little itty bitty signs that we get from the universe, from spirit, from our past loved ones throughout our day. Because once you start once you start listening to and when we say listening, we don't actually mean listening with your ears. It's like tuning into the energy in the universe around you, because then there's all these synchronicities start to happen, and this awareness and these epiphanies, and this beautiful dance with the universe happens. And then you start to trust. That's when you start to trust. So that's beautiful.
Andy, it's so true. It is so true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a language.
It is a language, and it's all different for everybody. Like it is. And it's
spirit language.
Yeah.
I love that.
You guys are so great.
You're so great. I'm like when you're like, oh, sometimes it's lonely in this thing, and I'm like, no, you just got 2 new best friends.
That's great.
She's not lying. She's not
lying.
That stalkery thing is true.
It's showing up again. I'm going
to show up energetically too. So just like I did with Allie earlier today. You just, maybe you'll see me walk into your room tonight.
Mandy, it happens, doesn't it? It happens, doesn't it? Do people tell you that, Mandy? That you showed up at their space?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even
me. Yeah.
I swear I saw you downtown today. Or were you here?
I thought you were in the room. Like I have one friend that she was like, I swear you were in the room. When did you read me? And I was like, oh, I did read you last night, because she asked me, obviously. Come on, consent. And then all of a sudden she's like, what time? And I'm like, well, I never usually look at the time, but I actually got a ping on my phone and I had to. And so I went and I looked, and she goes, I knew it. And I'm like, she's like, I could have sworn you were in my house. And that's I'm like, what? Isn't that crazy?
I love it so much. I get messages from people all the time. They're like, but I don't know why I give people trouble. I'm not sure why, but people go, you came to my dream last night and you like totally set me straight, but you were giving me trouble. Do you know how many times I've heard that? I'm like, I must be a real bitch in spirit. I have no idea.
You're like Allie's spirit guide H, just a bit stern, and you're like, get your shit together. Get your shit together. We got shit to do. Let's go.
Get it done. That's so funny. I freaking love that. So watch out tonight, because Mandy's coming. I'm not a
There you go. Mandy's coming.
We're gonna go for coffee.
She's nicer to me than I am.
Oh gosh, we're gonna have Debra show up in both of our dreams. I'm gonna be like, I'm sorry, okay. Well, my spirit guide's gonna totally be like, okay, I got her.
We'll be
I'm gonna use her. Oh,
awesome.
So funny.
So funny. Well, we're very excited for your book, Debra. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
for sharing.
Yeah. My girlfriend painted this cover, by the way.
Wow.
After her father died. No. And this painting came through, and it was so beautiful. And she didn't know it was for me, but it's this huge painting. And when I saw it, I'm like, Yvette, your father painted that for me. Like I knew he had done it through her.
Wow.
And her father had just died. And what's so crazy is that like there's 2 birds, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this typewriter with all this frustrated paper nearby. And it was like the process I was going through of like the light through this book. But I also have 2 birds on my arm.
What?
Oh, I've just got goosies again.
I know.
Get out.
I know. And they're the two loved ones that passed away, unfortunately, very young people. And so I just knew that it was there. And what's amazing is this man had a letter typed out to send to me the day he died. And I did not know that he really believed in what I did, but he basically sent me an email the morning of his death to say, I'm going to need you.
No,
I might need some time, but I'm going to need you. And then she painted this painting that became the book, which is magic.
I can't. Like, I'm just like, I just got goosies. My whole, it was just so beautiful.
Yeah,
that's so beautiful.
So thank you for inviting me to this beautiful podcast and being, being the first place that I get to talk about it.
Yes, we're very excited.
Thank you for saying yes. I'm like, I'm just like, I loved it. I love the conversation. I know our podcast listeners are gonna freaking love the conversation. I can't wait to first download the one that's out, because your book's coming out October 30th. Yes. We are not quite at October 30th while we're recording this, but I'm deadly. I'm reading it. I'm deadly paranormal. That's the one, right? I am downloading that tonight.
Deadly paranormal amazing. Is so much fun.
That's so
but
cool.
If you're in town, I can give you a book. I think I still have like 15 books. I'll give you an actual book. Yeah.
Yes.
So now we really get to
we just have
you.
to meet up. We'll have a coffee date and I'll give you each a copy of Deadly
Oh, we
Turn.
love that.
Oh my God,
We
I would love that. And then I'm going to be obviously downloading and buying your book that comes out on 30th.
Absolutely. Everybody should.
Stories.
Yeah.
That
Very
sounds
excited.
amazing. Yeah.
You guys can find Debra. So you have Instagram and Facebook, and it's Debra Doerksen, right?
Yeah, Debra Doerksen. I have the blue check mark, so
Okay.
people will know that it's me. I have a spiritual mediumship with Debra Doerksen page, but it doesn't have the blue check mark because you can only have a blue check mark on one. And then it's just www.debradoerksen.com.
Okay, and we'll put everything in the show notes so people can find you. And then, of course, when we release the podcast, we will share it all over our social medias. And we're just excited to have you and to connect with you.
You guys are great at social media, by the way. I am terrible at it. I'm like, here's a picture of me and my cat in bed. And then here's a really nice professional picture.
Oh my God, I love it.
Like down the stairs, and
I give all the credit to Allison. She's like the social media queen, and she's like stern with me on it.
Wow. I'm a perfectionist. That's the problem.
Awesome.
I'm not allowed to touch it.
You are so allowed. I'm not that bad. You're so allowed.
Okay,
but...
I've posted a couple things, and she's like, is it okay if can I just take that down and just like fix a couple things?
There's a spelling mistake and it's making my eye twitch. And I
need analysis.
I'm like,
you
just
do.
let me, I know. And I'm like, and I don't want to, I'm like, and I'm super nice about it. I'm like this. I'm like,
She's like peeks in, but now I usually send anything that I creatively work on, which it's not a lot because Ali does a lot of it. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just do this. And then I'll just send it to her. Like, how does this look? She's like, ooh, can we usually it's good. But now, because I get it now, but
when the words are coming off the page, I'm like, well, probably best to bring the words in. So like, they're not cut off, but cool. I don't want to make you mad.
No, you're good. Anyway, just teasing.
I know.
All right. So we will wrap this up again. Thank you so much for being here, Debra. And
thanks, you guys.
We will have you back because you have so much knowledge and experience. I'm sure there's so many topics that we could just fill another hour or 8 with on other things. So
it's hard to stop.
I know.
But after everybody reads, then we can really.
Yes. We should do a book club.
A book club would be so.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay. We'll table that. Okay. We'll see you next week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.